So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk about the recent story about the Michaela school that has won its recent judgment against Islamic prayer in that school. And before I begin, I actually just want to read the very terms of the judgment, so that we all know what the judge said and what they meant. So this is the court's judgment.
Read it.
I'll get there. Right, so the court's decision, and I'm reading from the court's press release. So this is actually what the court said. For the reasons explained in the judgment, the conclusion of the court was that all the grounds of the challenge, that's the challenge against the ban on Islamic salat inside the school, have failed. Finally, we have a court with a judge with a brain that isn't frightened to stand up to Islamists. These are the reasons given. Article 11. I'm going to put it on. Article 11 was rejected for two reasons. First, the PPP did not interfere with the claimant's freedom to manifest her religious belief under Article 9 of the ECHR. She had chosen the school knowing of its strict regime. On the evidence, she was able to move to a suitable school which would allow her to pray at lunchtime, and in any event, she was able to perform Qadr prayers in order to mitigate the fact that she was not able to pray at the allotted time. Second, the PRP was in any event justified under Article 9.2 of the ECHR, given the ethos of the school and the practicalities of facilitating prayer for Muslim pupils at lunchtime. So in other words, the court was saying that if she wanted to, she could have gone to another school. She chose this school knowing what she was entering into, and as a Muslim, she could perform Qadr prayers to make up for the fact that the school would not allow her to perform Salat at lunchtime. The court goes on in its judgment. It was accepted that not permitting the claimant to perform the dua prayer at the allotted time was detriment for the purposes of the Equality Act 2010, and the PRP put Muslim pupils at particular disadvantage, given that they were more likely than non-Muslim pupils to wish to pray during the school day. The PRP therefore had an indirectly discriminatory effect. However, it was a proportionate means of achieving the legitimate aims of the school and was therefore justified, essentially for the reasons given in the context of the claim under Article 9 ECHR. The disadvantage to Muslim pupils at the school caused by the PRP was outweighed by the aims which it seeks to promote in the interests of the school community as a whole, including Muslim pupils. Do us a favour, guys, keep it down or go talk somewhere else, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, the court was saying that for the purposes of ensuring that Muslim pupils did not bully other Muslim pupils about performing Salat in the school that it was a proportionate response to this effect of causing division and antagonism between pupils to ban the salat in the Michaela school in Wembley. In other words, it's saying that if they had not been so divisive and bullying and harassing others about it, their case may have been stronger. In other words, the court was making a stance against Islamist bullying in the school. Article 13 of the court's judgment, considering ground 3 of the case. In substance, the school had due regard to the required equality issues in relation to the PRP and therefore had complied with the PSED, even if it had considered the issues more thoroughly, as the claimant claimed that it should have, it would have come to the same conclusion. In other words, the court is saying that having considered its own judgment and the judgment of the school twice, it has found that the school's judgment to preserve the rights for Muslims to express their religion in the school and the rights of other Muslims not to be harassed for not praying, and the need to create an integrated community school outweighed the claimant's demand for the right to salat in the school. Ground 4, Article 14 of the court's judgment reads as following. The head teacher had not acted unfairly in failing to ask the claimant for her version of events before excluding her for 2 days on March 23rd, 2023. Even if she had asked the claimant for her account, the outcome would have been the same. The head teacher's decision was based on the evidence of a senior teacher that the claimant had been extremely rude and defiant towards her in front of other pupils. And in the context of concerns about growing numbers of pupils using prayer mats to pray in schoolyards, in what appeared to be coordinated action, the head teacher was fully entitled to accept the teacher's account, and therefore the claimant's arguments failed. And so the head teacher was justified in excluding the Muslim pupil, defying the policies of the school. Part B of Section 14 of the court's judgment reads as follows. However, the head teacher had acted unfairly in excluding the claimant for 5 days on the 28th of April 2003 on the basis of what she was told by a teacher after an investigation which did not include asking the claimant for her account. The second fixed term exclusion related to allegations by fellow pupils about remarks by the claimant, some of which were said to have been made months earlier but had not been complained of at the time. She ought to have been asked her version of events so as to establish the facts before the head teacher made her decision. Nor could it be said that the outcome would have been the same if the claimant had been asked. In other words, the court found against the head teacher when there was a secondary exclusion that lasted for 5 days, based upon complaints by other pupils of what the pupil had said months earlier, showing that other pupils had found the claimant's comments alarming, distressing, harassing, or in some other way, as of yet unknown, upsetting enough to complain about it. That is the entire judgment of the court with regards to the complaint made by the pupil at the Michaela school that banned Salat in its grounds. Now, are there any questions before I go on to give my commentary as a Christian?
Any questions on the topic of
Okay,
Operation Bob Sila?
I want to give my commentary now upon this judgment.
Give it.
I'm giving a commentary based upon a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking like a liberal, secular, multiculturalist.
Okay.
I support the ban on Salat in schools. I support the ban of Salat in this school, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to explain why.
Yeah, why?
Because as a Christian, I am committed to the idea of a Christian state. And this judgment in no way affects Christian prayer in school. Christians can perform prayer at the Michaela school.
Okay.
Why can we perform prayer at the Michaela school?
Tell us.
Because Christian prayer does not necessitate long liturgical movements, or standing in ranks, or bowing or prostrating so that the world can see you. It can be done in quiet, in privacy, in your own head, ladies and gentlemen. Something incidentally that the British state has made illegal outside of abortion clinics, and no Muslims ever stood with Christians in saying that that was wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But furthermore, Muslims perform a form of prayer similar to Christian prayer. It's called dua prayer. It isn't like Salat. You can do it on the back of a horse. You can do it standing in a playground. And so, the Muslim right to pray, like a Christian right to pray, is preserved at the Michaela school. Further, because Islamic Sharia is like a sieve, you've got qualifications on qualifications and conditions on conditions that allow you to do a full 360. It's quite possible for a Muslim to do something when they can't perform the Salat. It's called Qada prayers. And so a Muslim is able to express their religion in full at the Michaela school. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that British law should be interpreted by Christian categories, not according to liberal multiculturalism. And so when the question of prayer and its forbidding or permitting is tested in a court, that term prayer should be interpreted from a Christian perspective. And the question should be asked, are Muslims able to pray in a way that is analogous to Christian prayer? And the answer is yes. And so as a Christian, I fully support the banning of Salat in schools, ladies and gentlemen. But I would stand with Muslims if anyone tried to ban dua prayer in schools, because that is analogous to Christian prayer, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Are there any questions or comments before I continue to my next point?
What's the difference between dua and salat?
So the question is, what is the difference between dua and salat? Salat is more ritualistic, more liturgical, and has more obligations upon the Muslim in how they perform it, whereas dua is kind of like a Christian prayer when we just pray.
It's private.
It's a more private matter in your head. It doesn't come with the ritualistic obligations as salat prayer does.
So a classroom wouldn't need to be sacrificed.
Exactly. A Muslim at Michaela school, just like a Christian at Michaela school, could pray on the playground without any obstacles or objections.
The issue was the threat to their public safety in the playground.
The reason why the school decided to ban salat prayer was because
People were trying buttons.
Muslims tried to intimidate the school through violence, through acts of aggression, through acts of harassment and acts of vandalism, and that Muslim pupils started harassing other Muslim pupils who didn't want to go to Salat to do the dua prayer. And also Muslim pupils started harassing non-Muslim pupils because of the prayers. And the school took the decision to ban the Salat prayer so that these problems would disappear, and that is a wholly fair decision of the school. But I'm not defending it for the liberal reason. I'm defending it for a Christian reason. Because as a Christian, I believe that Muslims should be treated equally under the law, but that the law should be interpreted through Christ. And so prayer must be interpreted in a Christian way, and that which is analogous to Christian prayer should be protected by the state, and that which is outside of analogous to Christian prayer should receive no special protection. And that is the difference between a liberal multiculturalist looking at this question and a Christian. Any other comments or questions before I move on to my next point? I'll take one more.
But when you say you're looking at it through a Christian eyes, you're bringing discrimination into it. Unfortunately, really, we want to just think of it as only for the children, just the safety of all the kids together. Because it is one of the best schools in the UK. And it is run brilliantly. So I think we have to find a way to
Okay, allow me to reply.
It just discriminates.
Allow me to reply. Allow me to reply. So the brother makes an argument from what I would describe as a liberal perspective. And after this talk, if you want to debate that, I'll happily debate you. However, I reject his logic. I reject his logic.
Why?
Because I don't believe in a liberal secular state. I believe in a Christendom. I believe in a Christian state. And in a Christian state, the categories of our laws should be interpreted from a Christian perspective. So when we ask what a family is in family law, we define family from a Christian perspective. When we ask what prayer is in terms of our law, we interpret prayer from a Christian perspective. And I agree with the arguments. They are a valid part of the argument. This was for the benefit of the harmony and the protection of pupils in the school.
That's the best school.
And to preserve, no, I'm not debating him any longer. And to preserve a good school in Wembley, ladies and gentlemen. But let me just say this. The liberal commentariat of this country should be utterly ashamed.
Why?
They have villainized the Michaela school. They have villainized its head teacher, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, have they kicked up a song and a dance about the fact that public expressions of Christianity are illegal in Saudi Arabia? Have they kicked up a song and a dance over the fact that there are countless Muslims in this country that think you should be killed for converting from Islam to Christianity? No, they haven't.
Nothing.
They haven't villainized those Muslims. Why?
Why?
Because anyone who does villainize those despicable, those disgusting Muslims who support killing Christians for leaving Islam, they call them Islamophobic. But, ladies and gentlemen, the liberals are villainizing the Michaela school for banning Salat. And this brings me on to my next point, ladies and gentlemen. The crocodile tears of the Muslim commentariat. Those Muslims who are condemning the Michaela school. What hypocrites you all are! What vile, disgusting, despicable hypocrites you are! Because you say that the Michaela school is Islamophobic for banning Salat, when you try to justify killing Christians for leaving Islam. You support apostasy laws in Islam that result in the actual deaths of Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just point out to you the number of countries in the world where it is illegal, ladies and gentlemen, to convert to Christianity if you are a Muslim. Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Malaysia, Mauritania, the Maldives, Pakistan, parts of Nigeria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, Sudan, United Arab Emirates and Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, you Muslims who are condemning as Islamophobic the decision of the Michaela school to ban Salat, I say you are Christophobes and you are Christophobic and your religion encourages you to be so. I do not care about your crocodile tears. I don't care about your hypocrisy and double standards. And I don't need to receive lectures, and neither does anyone in the West need to receive lectures about Islamophobia from people who justify murdering Christians because they left Islam. I want to say to you, why aren't you condemning Saudi Arabia, where the mere demonstration of a cross or where public prayer is illegal in the entire country of Saudi Arabia? And you have nothing to say about it.
Nothing.
And neither does the liberal virtue signalling hypocrites of our liberal mainstream media. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not need to take lectures on this matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions about what I've talked about just now?
Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Any questions o comentarios?
Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Well done, both.
Brother, you had your chance to debate me, you just missed it.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
I'm sure he's
I'm just building up the school.
I'm just talking what a great student Michaela had.
Right. So ask them whether they support killing Christians who leave Islam. Ask them if they support Saudi Arabia banning public expressions of Christianity. Because all the Muslims are complaining about the Michaela school, but they support the banning of public expression of Christianity in Saudi Arabia, and they support killing Christians who leave Islam. We don't need to take lectures from such people.
Oh, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to another topic.
What's the next topic called?
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you all heard about the attack recently upon Bishop Mary Emmanuel in Sydney, Australia. Who saw that? The attack against Bishop Mary Emmanuel in Sydney, Australia, ladies and gentlemen.
Hands up.
Let's just picture the scene for a moment.
Yeah.
Here is a bishop of a Christian church in a Western liberal secular state, by practice at least, preaching in his church. And in walks a Muslim and tries to stab him with a knife. And in a miracle, the bishop holds up his cross and the knife fails to link. It fails to load. And the bishop's life is protected. Thanks be to God.
Praise the Lord.
And then the Christian brothers charge forward and in a scene that we can only imagine, restrain, possibly with blows, the attacker and pin him to the ground. And then the bishop, ladies and gentlemen, wounded as he is by the attacker, bloodied by the knife. Brother, don't feed him, please. Yeah? Bloodied by the attacker, gets up whilst the attacker is restrained and puts his hand on him and prays for him. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a perfect embodiment of Christian teaching. And I'm going to explain why. Ladies and gentlemen, the congregation of that church embodied perfectly our Lord's teachings when our Lord said, having washed the feet of the apostles, love one another as I have loved you. Serve one another. When your brother and sister needs protection from a jihadi, what do? You beat and restrain the jihadi. You use force to stop the jihadi, because that's what he needs. Right there, right then. That's what loving service looks like in that situation. And I hear, ladies and gentlemen, the liberal do-gooder Christian, the cultural know-nothing Christian, and the misguided pacifist Christian say this: what about turn the other cheek?
That old Testament.
What about that verse in the Bible? Well, let me challenge those Christians. Are you willing to go on public record and condemn those Christians who restrained this jihadi dog from killing the bishop? Are you willing to go on record and make the argument that these Christians sinned by using force to restrain this Islamist animal, this Islamist slime, ladies and gentlemen? Are you willing to go on camera and say they did the wrong thing? They should have allowed him to kill the bishop. If If you are,
Yeah.
send me the video and I'll challenge you to a debate, ladies and gentlemen.
Right,
So what does turn the other cheek mean in this situation? It means exactly what the congregation and the bishop did. They did not act out of revenge. They did not act out of anger. They acted out of the public good. They acted out of a sense of justice. They acted out of a sense of loving service by restraining this jihadi and saving the life of the bishop. And did what?
Brave.
He blessed his enemies exactly as Christ commands, who commands us to love our enemies and to bless those who persecute you.
Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
what you have in the example of the Good Shepherd Church in Sydney, Australia, is the living application of those 3 verses of the Bible that I have just quoted to you. Please note, ladies and gentlemen, it does not include pacifism. Are there any questions or comments before I continue with my presentation?
Any questions on the top, please go.
Do you think the Muslims would have behaved the same way if they'd caught the New Zealand shooter?
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Question from Banks.
the question is,
Yeah.
would the Muslims have behaved in the same way? Would the Muslims have behaved in the same way if they had caught the New Zealand shooter?
Okay.
And I do see some of my Christian brothers going like this.
Okay.
I want to tell you that you don't know.
Okay.
You don't know how they would have behaved. But let's be clear, however they would have behaved, what we do know is that Islam doesn't teach what Jesus Christ taught. Islam teaches the principle of life for life, blood for blood, action for action. And so what would have been of legitimate in an Islamic response would have been that the attacker should also have been shot, or some group of militant environmentalists should have also been shot up according to Islamic teaching. But notice, no Christians are calling for mosques to be attacked because of this Islamist. And let's be clear, this Islamist was inspired by Islamic teachings. Islamic teachings do legitimize attacks against those who insult Muhammad, because Muhammad himself called for those who insulted him to be killed, ladies and gentlemen.
That's true.
And that is in the hadiths. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make a next point, and then was it you wanted to ask? Go on.
What do you think about the religion critics who says that all religions are just made by humans?
On the topic, sir.
We didn't talk about Christianity.
Sir, if you're patient, I'll take questions afterwards about anything else. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear, don't feed the troll. Let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Why do so many Christians buy into an over-spiritualized understanding of Jesus' words? The kind of churchianity that is made up of soy boy Christianity, limp-wristed Christianity, spineless Christianity, yellow-bellied Christianity. Why do we find that in so many of our churches?
Why?
I'm going to tell you why, ladies and gentlemen. It is because our churches are in the grip of the fear of comfortable people. comfortable people with comfortable jobs and comfortable houses and comfortable lives who don't want to pick up their cross and make a living sacrifice of their lives. Because if you pick up a cross, if you pick up the Lord's cross and you offer your soul and body, as Paul teaches, as a living sacrifice, stop feeding the troll, ladies and gentlemen. Ignore the troll, ladies and gentlemen. This sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen, requires suffering. It requires conflict. It requires confrontation. You cannot live as a Christian, a full-bodied, a full-fat, a fully committed Christian, unless you accept that you are going to rub up the wrong way those who are enemies of the church, those who are enemies of the cross, those who are enemies of the gospel. And that's what Mari Emmanuel did. He criticized Muhammad from a Christian perspective, and then a Muslim tried to kill him for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll come to you in a second. Ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, we must reject, brother, stop feeding the troll. We must reject the comfort culture Christianity of white middle class Christians who don't want dogs, don't want to get called bad names, don't want to be involved in conflict because they may not be able to pay their nice mortgages on their 3 and 4 bedroom houses. And I call out all of you cowardly Christians for not being more like Mary Emmanuel, the noble confessor of the church in Sydney, Australia. Go on, sir.
I wanted to ask a question about
No, on the topic. It has to be on the topic, yes. You should then listen longer. Any questions on the topic, ladies and gentlemen? He's just beat to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, sir, brother, I'm going to address your point actually in this discussion. So let me take a question from him.
What's the connection between Surah 5:33 and Surah 9:29 and what happened to Mary Emmanuel? According to you.
Right, if you want me to quote on verses, pull them out so that you can read them and have our commentary. So, ladies and gentlemen, while he's getting ready to ask a question the next time, let me continue my presentation.
Question?
No, I'm moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, we in the West, ladies and gentlemen, we in the West, ladies and gentlemen, are facing a worsening security issue, a worsening security problem in the West. What happened to Bishop Mari Emmanuel has also happened in a Catholic church in France, where a Catholic priest was murdered. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen thousands of churches attacked across France. We've seen decades numbers of churches burned in Canada. We've seen Christian liturgies interrupted by mobs of anti-fascista and left-wing hypocrites interrupting the Mass in America. And we've seen churches attacked in England. We've seen Christians driven from cities in Reading and Bradford in the United Kingdom. We've seen, ladies and gentlemen, a worsening security development in the West. You've seen Christians, an attempted murder of Christians here in Speaker's Corner. And I hope JC and Freddie put up all the articles and the images to show what I'm talking about. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, We must accept a fact that we don't want to readily accept. The state is either unwilling or unable to protect the church in the West. That means, as Christians, we must learn to protect ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to state that we should not break the law. We should not act outside of the law, but we should campaign to change the law, to allow ourselves to protect ourselves, and we should organize within the law so that we can protect ourselves. And so I state that every Christian fellowship should provide martial arts training for its men in those churches and fitness training in those churches so that Christian men can protect themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, we should organize dedicated religious orders to the protection of the body of Christ, working within the limits of the law. And we should campaign to tweak the law to ensure that Christians can protect their churches, because the state is either unwilling or unable to protect churches and Christians from Islamists. I want to say to the Good Shepherd Church in Australia directly, learn from this attack, and from now on there should be strong men always protecting His grace, that bishop, that confessor of the church, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say that if the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury disagree with me, then why do you have the Swiss Guard protecting you, Your Holiness? Disband your own protection. Send away your close security. Send away the police that protect you, and be as vulnerable as Christians are vulnerable to persecution. If you say to us that we cannot defend ourselves, then refuse the protection that comes with your position and show solidarity with the most vulnerable, the most poor Christians in the world, so that you too can be attacked with a knife and a gun and punched. And if you're not willing to face that, then stop asking the poorest and the weakest and the most vulnerable Christians to do so. Any other questions on the topic?
My question is, we see that a lot of Muslims tend to turn to violence quite a lot. And about 300 years, 400 years ago, this is my case with Christian. What happened in that few 400 years where Christians calmed down and we see very, very little attacks, Christian and Muslim, and if we get attacks to Muslim and Muslim. Okay. What was it? Was it to do with the history of the West diverging from the history of Islam?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very good and insightful question. If you can't hear me, I'm inviting you to come closer so I don't have to project my voice as much.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you see Christians, Protestant and Catholic, killing one another in the world today, like you see Sunni and Shia Muslims killing one another in the world today? Why don't you see that? It's because of, ladies and gentlemen, of the power of Christ's teachings. Let me be clear, let me draw out the line for you. If you go back 500 years, at the time of the Reformation, Christians and Catholics were killing one another by the million. 8 million Christians died over a period of 100 years in the Reformation War. However, both the Protestants and the Catholics were committed to Jesus' teaching when he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God," ladies and gentlemen. And both Christians and Catholics are committed to the idea of peace, and so they built a peace, the peace of Westphalia. And the result of that peace gave birth to the Enlightenment and the liberal Western world. I want to say, as a Christian, I consider the liberal Western world a tragic mistake. But how glorious, how wonderful Christianity is, that even when we apply Jesus' teachings wrong, it still looks better than Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, it still looks better than Islam, even when we apply Jesus' teachings imperfectly, as we have done in the Western world. Because there is a reason why we have killed one another, a piece of Westphalia, like Protestants and Catholics did. Because they never had a teacher like Jesus. They never had a teacher who commits us as an act of doctrine and as a principle to building peace. Instead, they had a teacher like Muhammad, who teaches them about revenge and about hatred of the unbeliever. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference. Go on, you got a question.
Yeah, my question was, do you see any relationship between what happened with Mary Emmanuel and Surah 533?
Read it.
So Surah 533 says, "Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive upon the earth to cause corruption is none, but that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off by opposing sides, and that they be exiled from the land. That is for them a disgrace in this world, and for them in the hereafter is a great punishment."
Now read 939.
Surah 9:39. If you do not go forth, He will punish you with a painful punishment and will replace you with another people, and you will not harm him at all.
Apologies, it's the wrong reference. 29.
29. Yes, I was surprised. Okay, 29.
It's off by a decade.
So Surah 9:29.
There we go.
Read it.
Which is the one.
Read it.
Fight against those who do not believe in Allah and in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His Messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth, Islam, and those who were given the scripture. Fight until they give the jizya willingly, while they are humble.
Right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So the question is there a connection between those two verses and the terrorist attack that occurred in Sydney, Australia against Bishop Mary Emmanuel?
Okay.
In addition to the hadiths in which Muhammad calls for the execution of those who mocked him and of those who insulted him, I believe there is a connection. Because 929 simply says fight against Jews and Christians because they don't believe in Islam, ladies and gentlemen. And to speak for Islam is a form of jihad. And thus, if Muslims interpret speaking for Islam as a form of jihad, then making criticism of Islam is a form of war analogous in Islamic fitna. In Islamic fitna. There's food! There's food! There's food! There's food! There's food! There's food! You see, we have our chance as well, ladies and gentlemen. It's only two of you. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. That's still 4 more than you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. The fact that we have 1400 years of attacks against Christians, like that occurred against Mari Emmanuel, ladies and gentlemen, demonstrates that there is a connection, between Islam and the attacks. Ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to press forward now with my presentation. If anyone else wants to make a comment, wait until I make my next point, and then you'll have an opportunity. I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I was encouraged by those 5,000 Christians that gathered on the street out of the side of the Good Shepherd Church to protest in defiance against this Islamist attack. I want to say that that congregation, from beginning to an end, has set an example for every Christian fellowship around the world about how to embody Christ's teaching, ladies and gentlemen. We, and I encourage Christians in Sydney, do not allow the liberal media to brush this attack under the carpet. Don't allow them to just move on. Because if this was an attack on the church or on a mosque, if this was an attack on a mosque, you would be subject to a week's worth of lectures about the evils of Islamophobia. But, ladies and gentlemen, the liberal media could not stop talking about this attack quickly enough. I was disgusted by the way the BBC deliberately hid from everyone the Islamist nature of the attack. The video, when you listen to it in full, you clearly hear the attacker cry out, Allahu Akbar, as he's trying to plunge a knife into the bishop, and the BBC edited out that part of the video. Ladies and gentlemen, they skipped it, just like they hid the Islamist nature of the attack against Hatun Tash here in the UK. The BBC and the liberal media have since tried to villainize the Bishop of Sydney. They've tried to villainize Bishop Mari Emmanuel, describing him as a controversial figure, talking about his controversial views, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever seen them behave that way when there's been attacks against Muslims? No. So we as Christians must call out the hypocrisy of the liberal media in how they treat these attacks against Christians and their double standards. And all of us and all of our congregations should become more like the Good Shepherd Church of Australia, to whom I send my greetings as a brother in solidarity with you and the faithful there. God bless. Any questions or comments?
That's your time.
Man, ask a question. He's a liar. The person he's a liar. God, we need to ask a question.
There's a lot of suffering that Muslims involved. It's pretty unbelievable. Things like it seems to have arranged. You see,
Okay, so let me address this point, because this is always the retort. Whenever we spotlight the suffering of Christians in the Muslim world, the retort is, what about the suffering of Muslims? Well, hold on a minute. Are the Muslims, when they're talking about what happened to the Michaela school in Wembley that banned Salat, are those Muslims that are talking about the Islamophobia, in quote marks, there, talking about the fact that public expressions of Christianity in Saudi Arabia are illegal? No. And when Muslims talk about the suffering of Muslims in China or in Burma, Do they ever speak about the suffering of Christians in Iraq and in Syria and in Lebanon, or in Egypt, or in Pakistan?
They're not suffering. They're not suffering.
There you go. They're not suffering. That is how the Muslims behave whenever we challenge them
Can you show me one
about the
proof?
persecution of
Show me one
Christians.
proof.
Ladies and
What about
gentlemen.
in Jordan? Did they
Ladies
suffer in
and
Jordan?
gentlemen, I'm not
Show me one
taking any
proof.
questions from him.
Because you are
Ladies
idiot.
and gentlemen,
You are a
because he
liar.
interrupts
Show
like
me
a
one-
child.
Show me one proof.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am on record condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And I want to make a statement, ladies and gentlemen, about Kosovo and Serbia, a topic that I've talked about a lot. My politics is guided by what is best for the church. And previously, I have always supported the Serbian people in their claims to Kosovo. However, recently I have learned, ladies and gentlemen, that since Kosovo became independent, the church in Kosovo is growing. Muslims are converting to Christianity at an amazing rate in Albania and in Kosovo. And so, ladies and gentlemen, anything that strengthens the church, I support. And if Kosovan independence helps the church to grow, then I am in favour of Kosovan independence. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? No, he interrupted like a child, and he is also interrupted.
I am his enemy.
Any other questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen? Going once.
Why you drinking beer?
So,
Did you say no drinking beer, no drinking whiskey?
so, ladies and gentlemen, nowhere does Jesus say don't drink beer.
Jesus
Nowhere
said no drinking beer,
does
yeah.
Jesus say don't drink whiskey. And Jesus himself turned water into wine. And Jesus himself handed a cup of wine to his followers. But let's be clear, the Bible condemns drunkenness. It condemns intoxication, ladies and gentlemen. Go on, sir.
Yes,
That's a well, made a big mistake.
Come on, and everything.
I'm sorry, with all the noise, I didn't hear the question. Just the question.
I just think that the Western world made a mistake in accepting mass migration from the Islamic world.
So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, have we in the West made a mistake in allowing unfiltered, unmitigated mass migration? The answer is yes. The evidence is everywhere. It's in the bombings of stadiums, killing children. It's in the attacks upon churches. It's in the fact that our benefit system is overwhelmed by benefit claims from people who don't have a Protestant work ethic. It's in the fact of Islamization in our streets, in our schools, in our public airways, and in our laws. It's in, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that we have a group of people dedicated, ladies and gentlemen, to the restriction of the freedoms that are traditional in the West. Liberal policies are not working. Liberal policies are not helping us. Housing, uncontrolled migration is costing all of us £93 million a day, ladies and gentlemen. Because the government will not defend the borders, even though it has the legal right to do so. So yes, we should have immigration, but no, we shouldn't have liberal styles worth of immigration. We should that can. In any other questions or comments?
What's the question, Bob Sila?
So the question is, should we as Christians vote reform? I see no Christian reason to vote reform.
Why?
They're not pro-life.
Okay.
They're not pro-church.
Okay.
They're not pro-gospel.
Okay.
They're not pro-marriage.
All right.
They're not pro-family.
All right.
They're just recycled conservatives. That's all they are. The one mitigating factor of the Reform Party is that they don't have a whip. But right now they've only got one MP, so why do they need a whip? Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Christian, you should vote for the Christian People's Alliance. Vote for Christian political parties, not liberal political parties.
What? Because they're Muslim or what?